Trivia question. What does a convicted killer lawyer have to do with the late great James Brown? Well, strap in, we're going to find out. H. Dwayne Herring practiced estate law in Columbia, South Carolina. John Johnson was the manager of Chastity's Gold Club. Chastity's was a strip club. We'll get to the strip club and how this day ended in an irreversible tragedy, but first, golf. On January the 28th, 2006, Herring spent part of the day golfing with friends in Aiken, South Carolina. He drank several beers while golfing. Not surprising, medical records would later show the man was an alcoholic. On his way home, he stopped by a bar for a few drinks, getting home sometime around 7:30 that night. There, he had a couple more beer with a golfing buddy. The buddy left, and Herring intended to go to bed. For reasons never explained, he got up instead and went to a Forest Acres restaurant. The restaurant was closed. So he heads on over to Platinum Plus, a strip club in Columbia. He had a drink, paid a dancer for a lap dance, and left, heading home. On his way there, he makes the fateful decision to stop at Chastity's. It would be 11 p.m. when he arrived. He ordered a drink at the bar, and then he would say that he remembers little to nothing for the next several hours, which will become quite convenient. Witnesses and some of the employees at Chastity's would say that Herring purchased a drink, then he paid for a $30 3-minute lap dance from a dancer named Mia. When that lap dance was done, he paid Mia $300 for a private dance in the champagne room. So Mia took Herring into the room and told him to wait while she went to freshen up. Carl Weeks, who is a bouncer at the club, went to check on Herring in the room after a few minutes, and he would find Herring naked and masturbating on the sofa. The bouncer told him that was not allowed, and that Herring would have to leave. Herring did not move. So Weeks went to get Johnson. When Weeks and Johnson got back to the room, Herring was dressed. Weeks then gave Herring a choice: leave or the police would be called, and they would arrest him for solicitation of prostitution. Herring responds with, "No, I will effing shoot you." That is what Weeks would say that Herring replied to the demand that he leave. Johnson and another bouncer then escorted Herring to the front door. It's 11:57 p.m. now. Johnson walked outside with Herring to his car. Johnson then called back Herring's tags to Weeks over a two-way radio. Herring drove away. Well, at least he did initially. He then backed up his black SUV, fumbling with the glove compartment with his right hand. Then he pulled away slowly, putting down the passenger side windows as he went. Weeks and Johnson had just gone back into Chastity's when they saw Herring coming back around in his vehicle. According to the other bouncer, Hawkins, Johnson was right inside the door. Hawkins saw a flash of light come from the side of the SUV. He heard Johnson say, "Oh shit," before falling to the floor. He had been hit in the left ear by a bullet that came right through the front door. It would be a little later at the hospital that Johnson would die. Police were called to the scene at Chastity's. There they were giving Herring's tags, which were registered to Herring's law office in Columbia. They took a patrol over to the firm parking lot, but they didn't find the vehicle. So they discovered Herring's address and went there at 2:10 a.m. A police officer noticed a light on in the garage, and they peeked into the garage window to see if Herring was in there. They did not see Herring, but they did see the vehicle they had been looking for. They knocked on the door and rang the doorbell several times. They did not get an answer. So they returned to the police station to obtain a warrant to search the house. Police go back to Herring's place at 4 a.m., warrant in hand. They again ring the doorbell several times to no answer. They force entry, announcing police and search warrant. Officer Linfert saw Herring in the hallway and recognized him from the photo on his license. Linfert told Herring to get on the ground, but instead, Herring makes about the 54th bad decision of the night and ran back down the hall toward a bedroom. Police would follow. Linford saw Herring pull a gun from a nightstand and point it toward him. He yelled at him to drop the gun and fired a shot at Herring. Other officers also opened fire, hitting Herring in the arm. Herring calls 911 and told them that there were intruders in his home. After talking to 911, he says he surrendered because it was then he realized that the intruders were police officers. This is where Herring would get all up and dishonest. He told police he never left the house after returning home from Aiken. He said he didn't recall going to Chastity's. Police bring up the fact that there is video of him coming into Chastity's and video of him leaving Chastity's. Right, yes, he would suddenly remember being there, but he only remembers having a drink and hearing a gunshot firing, and then the next he knows, bam, here are the police bursting into his house. As he's confronted by police, he remembers more and more details. The bullet fragments from Johnson's body conclusively matched a .357 Magnum Ruger that Herring owned. For a man who remembered nothing, it's surprising that it was found under some clothes in his bedroom closet. Kidding. It's not surprising at all because that is where Herring hid it. There was also gunshot residue found on the passenger side of the black SUV. Herring would take the killing to a trial. After the evidence was in, the state and the defense lawyers would talk to the jury. At trial, Herring would allege that his drink was drugged and that he immediately developed no memory from the time he ordered the drink until officers appeared at his house. Each side of the case would approach their address to the jury very differently. The state would say that the defense lawyers were throwing up smoke screens to obscure the focus of the jury away from what Herring did to the character of the person he did it to, the character of the place he did it in, the people who worked there. This man, the prosecutors would say, for his dignity and his integrity and his job, he received a .357 bullet into his brain. He dismissed Herring's claims that someone drugged his drink, referring to that as a last-ditch effort of a lawyer who was trying to save himself. Herring's lawyers would hammer on the fact that this was a strip club and an establishment that sells flesh, women that will touch you. They tell the jury. I don't think that influenced them very much. They would suggest that the club brought this on by ripping customers off and liquoring them up. They tried to sell the jury on the idea that Herring did not commit murder. He did not intend to kill anyone. He didn't point a gun at police officers. Everyone else were at fault for the fact that Johnson was no longer alive. Everyone but Herring. After a 2-week trial, a Richland County jury took just 2 hours to find Herring guilty of murder and pointing and presenting a firearm. Mandatory minimum on murder in South Carolina is 30 years. And that is what the judge would sentence Herring to, along with 5 years concurrent on the firearms charge. Herring would appeal his conviction and his sentence. He was denied on both. He would then seek a writ of habeas corpus on much the same grounds as the appeal. A writ of habeas corpus literally means having the body, and it is a request that the court examine whether or not a person's detention is legal. He was denied. He appealed that decision and was again denied in 2012. He was disbarred by the Supreme Court of the state of South Carolina in August 2007, and corrections records indicate that Herring remains in custody as of February 2024. His release date is in May 2037. He is not eligible for parole. Now, what does this killer have to do with James Brown? Not long before he shot a man dead because he was thrown out of a club, Herring prepared James Brown's will and an irrevocable trust. Brown died on Christmas Day 2006. All hell broke loose over the estate. There were serious credible questions about whether the will and the trust were prepared under undue influence. There was a blank deed signed and witnessed by Brown in Herring's client file, which opened his estate to abuse. Herring had destroyed his credibility at his criminal trial. It turned into an all hell broke loose situation where trustees were removed, family members fought over the estate and what to do with it. Brown's own desire to donate much of his estate to children who needed it were just ignored. There was a grossly unfair settlement agreement that was overturned, and there was some talk of opening a Graceland like park. Much of the absolute mess that the handling of Brown's estate became could have been prevented by careful preparation of the estate, including ensuring that the will and trust were prepared without any appearance of undue influence, having a justifiable reason that there was a blank deed signed by Brown in the file, and generally providing for a thorough and credible documentation. As it was, there was going to be some contention when Brown passed. There were allegations of murder, DNA tests that shocked some folks, and Brown lived a remarkably complicated life, colorful and scandalous. Due in part to the laxities in estate planning, the court would take significant time and resources to get it all figured out. By the time the fight is over, much of Brown's estate would be gone. As Brown himself once said, quote, "When I die, they're going to be fighting over my money for 10 years or more. The lawyers are going to get all that money." End quote. Brown was right. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate you. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.